My wife cheated with her coworker and thought she could get away, so I vanished and exposed a secret that shattered her image and silenced her family. I'm mad. I'm 34. And at the time this all went down, I'd been married to Claire for just shy of 10 years. If you asked me back then, I would have said our marriage was solid. Like, we had the usual ups and downs, but who doesn't, right? So, here's where it gets crazy. I was on a work trip, supposed to come back home on a Friday, but our meetings wrapped up early. So, I figured I'd surprise Claire by coming back a day ahead of schedule. It seemed like a sweet idea, right? I didn't call her or anything because I thought it'd be cool to just show up and maybe grab dinner together, spend some time after being away, normal stuff. Anyway, I'm driving back and about 20 miles from home, I realized I was running on fumes. The last thing I needed was to get stuck on the side of the road, so I took the next exit and stopped to fill up. Now, here's where things start to go sideways. As I'm pulling out of the gas station, I spot this car that looks exactly like Claire's. I mean, the same model, color. Even the license plate looked familiar, but it's like a couple miles from our house. Weird, right? My first thought was, what's she doing over here? Because this area wasn't anywhere close to the grocery store she usually goes to or anywhere she'd normally be. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, so I figured maybe she had some errand to run she hadn't mentioned earlier. No big deal. But still, it felt a little off, so I called her. She picks up after a few rings and I swear she sounded a little out of breath. Nothing too crazy, but you know when something just feels wrong, like you can hear it in someone's voice. She goes, "Hey, I was just about to call you." She says she's running some errands. Nothing special, but her voice, I don't know, man. Something was off. I asked her where she was and she hesitated for a second like she didn't expect me to ask. That was red flag number 1. Then she tells me she's heading to the grocery store near our place. But here's the thing. She's not heading toward our place. I saw her car go in the opposite direction just a few minutes earlier. I didn't call her out on it right then and there. I mean, part of me was thinking maybe I was being paranoid, and the other part of me was curious to see where this was going. So, I told her, "Cool. I'll meet you at the store. Maybe we can grab dinner afterward." She hesitates again like she's processing what I just said. Then she goes, "Sure, that sounds great." But you could hear it in her voice. She wasn't expecting me to say that. I'm not going to lie, my stomach was doing flips at this point. The more I thought about it, the more things started to click together in my head. Why was she acting weird? Why did she lie about where she was going? And why did she sound so damn nervous when I called? But I played it cool. I told her I was only a few minutes away, even though I knew she was probably speeding to beat me to the store. I figured I'd test her, see if she'd try to cover it up. Sure enough, as soon as we hung up, I saw her car fly past me in the opposite direction. She had to be going at least 90, trying to get to the store before I showed up. I guess she thought if she got there first, she could make it seem like she was just running errands like she said. I took my time, though. I wasn't in a rush. I pulled into the parking lot and there she was standing outside the store, adjusting her clothes and fixing her hair in the side mirror of her car. She didn't see me at first, so I just watched her for a second. It was weird, like she was trying to pull herself together before I got there. I finally pulled up and she immediately walked over to me, all smiles, acting like nothing was wrong. She suggested we just grab some groceries and head home instead of going out, which was fine by me. But the whole time I couldn't stop thinking about how sketchy she was acting, like why did she lie? Why was she out of breath when I called? And why was she so jumpy? Anyway, we go inside and the first thing she says is she needs to use the bathroom. Okay, whatever. People need to use the bathroom. But here's where it gets weird. She disappears into the restroom for like 15 minutes. I'm standing there waiting, and I could hear the sink running the whole time. It doesn't take 15 minutes to wash your hands. I didn't say anything, but I was getting more and more suspicious. I had that gut feeling something was off, but I didn't have any hard proof yet. When she finally came out, she looked a little flustered, but she just smiled and said, "Sorry, I had to do a number 2. Now, I don't want to get too graphic, but I know when someone's lying. I didn't hear any of the usual bathroom sounds, if you get what I'm saying. I think she was in there cleaning up after doing something. I don't know what, but it wasn't what she was telling me." We finished shopping, got some pre-made food, and headed home. I didn't push her on anything at that point. I figured I'd wait and see if she slipped up again. But that whole night, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was going on behind my back. She went to bed like nothing happened, but I stayed up wide awake, just replaying everything in my head. It was like everything was normal on the outside, but inside I knew our marriage wasn't what I thought it was. You know when you can't put your finger on something, but you just know. That's where I was at. I couldn't sleep, Couldn't think about anything else. I had no idea just how deep it was going to go, but I knew that was the moment things changed. Alright, so after that weird night at the grocery store, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. You know how people say to trust your gut? Well, mine was screaming at me, but I still wasn't sure what I was dealing with. Was she cheating? Was she hiding something else? I didn't know yet, but I was going to find out. A few days went by and I tried to act normal. I didn't want to tip her off that I was suspicious. Meanwhile, Claire was just going about her life like nothing happened, like everything was fine. But I started noticing more and more little things that didn't sit right with me. For starters, her phone. I know it's not cool to snoop, but she was always on it, constantly texting someone. Every time I asked who it was, she'd say it was just work or some friend from her book club. Now, maybe that's true, but it's like she was glued to the damn thing. And she never used to be like that. It wasn't just the texting either. It was the way she'd lock her phone immediately after reading a message. Like, she didn't want me to see what she was talking about. That's what really got me. If everything was normal, why was she being so secretive? So, one day, while she was in the shower, I decided to take a quick look. I'm not proud of it, but I had to know what was going on. The thing is, she was smart. She didn't leave anything suspicious on her phone. No weird texts, no pictures, nothing. Either she was really careful or she was using some other method to keep things hidden. It almost made me feel crazy, like I was imagining everything, but my gut wouldn't let it go. Then came the late nights. Now Claire's job sometimes required her to stay late, especially around deadlines. So it wasn't out of the ordinary for her to work late every now and then. But suddenly it was happening more often, and not just by an hour or two. She'd be home at 9 or 10 at night acting like it was no big deal. The excuses were always the same. Working on a big project, or I had to stay and help with something at the office. But the timing was just too convenient. One night, she told me she'd be working late again and I couldn't take it anymore. I decided to do something about it. Instead of sitting at home wondering where she was, I drove to her office. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but if she was telling the truth, then no harm done, right? Well, when I got there, her car wasn't in the parking lot. I drove around the block a few times waiting to see if maybe she had parked somewhere else or was running late, but nope, no sign of her. Now, here's where things started clicking into place for me. Remember that neighborhood where I saw her car the other week? I decided to take a detour and drive by just to see if she was there. And what do you know? As I'm cruising down that same street, there's her car parked in front of the same house, the same damn house with the same pickup truck in the driveway. I felt my blood boiling, but I didn't do anything rash. I parked a little way down the street, out of sight, and just sat there. I didn't know what I was waiting for, but I had to see something. I needed proof that I wasn't going crazy. After about 30 minutes of sitting in my car, I saw the front door of the house open. Out walks Claire with this guy, Nick, who I later found out was her coworker. They were laughing, talking like they didn't have a care in the world. That's when it hit me. She wasn't just working late. She was spending her extra hours with this guy. I didn't confront her right then and there because honestly I wasn't ready. I needed to process what I'd just seen. So instead, I pulled out my phone and snapped a few pictures of her car in the driveway and them talking in front of the house. I figured I'd need them later just in case she tried to deny anything. I drove back home, my head spinning. I didn't know what to do next. Part of me wanted to just pack up and leave, but another part of me wanted more information before I made any big moves. I wasn't the kind of guy to throw away almost a decade of marriage without knowing exactly what was going on. The next day, I didn't say anything to her. I acted like everything was fine. We had dinner together, talked about our days, the usual stuff, but I was watching her closely, trying to figure out if she'd slip up or give me any clues about where she'd really been the night before. She didn't. Claire was a good liar. I'll give her that. She didn't flinch or hesitate when she told me about her late night at work. She even said they ordered pizza for dinner at the office. It would have been convincing if I hadn't known the truth. Over the next few days, I kept an eye on her, trying to catch more evidence of what was going on. Every time she said she was working late, I'd drive by that same house, and every time there she was, parked out front. I didn't see Nick again, but I didn't need to. I already knew what was happening. At this point, I was just biding my time. I needed to figure out my next move, but I couldn't rush it. I didn't want to make a scene without being fully prepared. So, I kept gathering my evidence, waiting for the right moment to confront her. And the lies kept piling up. Claire would tell me she was at work, that she was stuck in traffic, that she had a late meeting. And all the while, I knew exactly where she was and what she was doing. But she didn't know that I knew. I started distancing myself from her without making it too obvious. I didn't want her to suspect anything yet. If she thought everything was normal, she'd keep making mistakes, and I needed her to slip up. At the same time, I was preparing myself for what was coming next. I knew I couldn't keep this up forever. Eventually, I'd have to confront her, but I wanted to make sure I had everything in place before I did. I wasn't sure how she'd react. Would she come clean? Would she lie again? I didn't know. But I was ready for whatever was coming. All I knew was that our marriage wasn't what I thought it was. And once I laid everything out on the table, there'd be no going back. All right. So, things had been pretty tense for a while, and I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I had enough proof that Claire was cheating, but I wasn't sure how I wanted to approach it. Part of me wanted to confront her the second I saw her with Nick outside that house, but another part of me wanted to be smart about it. I didn't want her to twist the situation and make me seem like the bad guy. You know, I needed everything to be laid out so she couldn't weasel her way out of it. One night, about a week after I saw her at Nick's house, she came home late again. She walked in like nothing was wrong, smiling and asking me how my day was. I played along, told her my day was fine, and asked how hers went. She gave me the same excuses as before. Late night at work, lots of projects piling up, but this time I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stared at her for a second, and then I just said, "Are you really going to keep lying to my face like that?" She looked at me confused, or at least she pretended to be confused. "What do you mean?" she asked, acting all innocent. That just made me even more pissed off. "I know about Nick," I said, keeping my voice as calm as possible. I wasn't about to give her the satisfaction of seeing me lose my cool. "I've seen you with him, Claire. I know what's been going on." For a split second, I saw a flash of panic in her eyes, but she covered it up quickly. "What are you talking about?" She was still trying to play dumb, but I wasn't falling for it. "I've seen you at his house multiple times. You told me you were working late, but you were with him." I didn't even need to go into the details yet, but I wanted to see if she'd try to lie her way out of it. She stood there staring at me, probably trying to figure out what to say next. "It's not what you think," she finally said, which made me want to laugh. That's always the first thing they say when they get caught, right? "We're just friends. He's going through a rough time, and I've been helping him out." I raised an eyebrow. "Helping him out at his house late at night, Claire? Do you hear yourself right now? You're not fooling anyone." She started getting defensive at that point, like she thought maybe if she got angry, I'd back off. "You've been spying on me, following me. That's insane, Matt. You're being paranoid." I didn't let her distract me. "I'm not being paranoid, Claire. I saw you too. I know you've been lying to me for weeks." There was a long silence after that. I could see her wheels turning, trying to figure out if there was any way to dig herself out of this hole, but she knew I had her. There was no way out. So, she changed tactics. She switched from defensive to upset, tears welling up in her eyes. "Okay, fine," she said, her voice shaky. "I screwed up. All right. But it wasn't serious. It didn't mean anything." I just stood there staring at her. I wasn't buying it. "It didn't mean anything, Claire? You've been sneaking around with this guy for weeks, lying to me every time you walk through that door. You think that doesn't mean anything?" She started crying for real then, and I could feel the frustration boiling inside me. I wanted to yell, to scream at her for what she'd done, but I held it together. Instead, I took a deep breath and said, "Why, Claire? Why did you do it?" She wiped her eyes and looked at me like she didn't know how to answer that. "I don't know," she whispered. "It just happened." "Things don't just happen," I snapped. "You made a choice, Claire. You chose to cheat on me." She didn't respond right away. She just stood there sobbing quietly. I couldn't tell if she was crying because she was actually sorry or because she got caught. Honestly, I didn't care anymore. "It didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice breaking. "But you did," I shot back. "You hurt me, Claire. You betrayed me. Do you even understand what you've done?" She nodded. But I wasn't sure if she really did. "I mean, how could she? How could someone who's supposed to love you just throw everything away like that?" "I'll end it," she said suddenly. "I'll end it with Nick. We can fix this, Matt. Please, we can work through it." I shook my head. "It's too late for that." She looked at me, desperation in her eyes. "No, it's not. We can go to counseling. We can talk this through. I love you, Matt. I do." I didn't believe her. How could I? She'd been lying to me for weeks, maybe even months. Whatever love we had, she killed it the moment she decided to be with someone else. "You don't love me," I said, my voice cold. "If you really loved me, you wouldn't have done this." "It was a mistake," she pleaded. "Please give me a chance to make it right." I stood there staring at her. And for the first time in a long time, I felt nothing. No anger, no sadness, no love, just nothing. "I can't do this anymore," I said, finally breaking the silence. I'm done. She froze. What do you mean? You can't just leave. I'm done, Claire, I interrupted. I don't want to be in this marriage anymore. I can't trust you. And without trust, there's nothing left. She started crying harder, trying to grab my arm, but I pulled away. Please, Matt, don't do this. We can fix it. I swear, but I wasn't listening anymore. My mind was made up. There was no fixing this. You can't come back from something like this. I'll pack my things tomorrow, I said quietly. We'll figure out the rest later. And just like that, I walked away. I didn't raise my voice, didn't slam the door, didn't do anything dramatic. I just walked out, and in that moment, I felt more at peace than I had in weeks. Claire called my name as I left, but I didn't look back. That was it. There was no going back. Now, after I walked out that night, things got real quiet. It was like the calm after a storm, but not in a peaceful way. More like when you're standing there looking around at the mess that just happened and you know you've got to deal with the cleanup. That's exactly what it felt like. I didn't go far that first night. I stayed with my buddy Jake, who didn't ask too many questions, just let me crash on his couch and left it at that. I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. I didn't even know where to start. The next morning, I went back to the house. I didn't want to drag things out. And I definitely didn't want to be there when Claire was. The last thing I needed was another round of her crying and begging me to stay. So, I got there early, packed up some clothes, my laptop, and a few things I knew I'd need for the next few weeks. It felt weird packing up my life like that. But I didn't want to stay in that house any longer than I had to. Every corner of it felt tainted now. As I was packing, my phone started blowing up. Claire had figured out I wasn't coming back, and she wasn't happy about it. I didn't even read most of the messages. A few were her saying how sorry she was, that we could work through this if I just gave her a chance. Then the next few were angry, like she was pissed that I'd actually walked out. It was like she couldn't believe I'd go through with it. I blocked her number. It wasn't because I didn't want to hear from her at all. It was more that I needed some space to think. I needed to breathe without her constant messages pulling me back into the mess. I wasn't sure what I was going to do yet, but I knew I couldn't stay in contact with her while I figured it out. After I blocked her, things got quiet again. The silence was kind of eerie, but it was also what I needed. Jake wasn't asking me a bunch of questions, and I wasn't in a rush to explain. I didn't want to sound like one of those guys who airs all their dirty laundry. At the same time, I couldn't shake this feeling like I'd been thrown into a whole new life without any warning. I'd been with Claire for nearly a decade. We had routines, habits, little inside jokes that came from being together that long. And now all of that was gone. It's weird how fast things change when you least expect it. You think you know what your life is, and then it's like the floor just drops out from under you. For the next few days, I laid low. I didn't tell many people what happened. I wasn't ready to deal with all the questions. And honestly, I didn't know how to explain it without feeling embarrassed. My family didn't know yet, and I wasn't sure how to bring it up. What do you even say? Hey, Mom. Dad, Claire's been cheating on me. And I walked out. It just felt too raw, and I wasn't ready to have that conversation. But Claire wasn't making things easy. Since I blocked her, she started reaching out to people we knew, mutual friends, my family, even some of my coworkers. She was trying to find out where I was staying, trying to get them to talk me into meeting with her. She told them she needed closure or whatever. I don't know. That's when things started getting messy. Her friends began calling me, telling me how devastated she was, how she couldn't stop crying, how she was a wreck. They wanted me to meet up with her just so she could explain everything. I don't know what there was to explain. She cheated. I found out and I left. End of story, right? But apparently that wasn't good enough for her. Her older sister, Beth, even called me, which was wild because Beth and I barely ever talked. She acted like this was all just some big misunderstanding and that I should give Claire a chance to explain herself. I wasn't having any of it, though. I told Beth straight up, she cheated on me. What's there to explain? She didn't have much to say after that. It didn't stop there, though. Claire's parents, who had always gotten along with, started reaching out too. They were shocked, obviously, and couldn't believe what was happening. But instead of supporting me, they sided with her. They tried to guilt-trip me, saying things like, you know, she loves you and maybe you're overreacting. Overreacting? How was I supposed to react to being lied to and betrayed for weeks, maybe longer? That's when it hit me. No one really knew what was going on except me. To everyone else, we were the perfect couple, and Claire was the sweet, caring wife. They didn't see the lies, the cheating, the nights I stayed up wondering what the hell was going on. They saw the version of her she wanted them to see. I started feeling pretty alone at that point. My own family was supportive, sure, but Claire was really pulling at everyone's heartstrings. It was like they all forgot she was the one who destroyed our marriage. I knew I wasn't crazy. But damn, it felt like the world was upside down. But you know what? I wasn't about to give in. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into coming back. I'd seen who she really was and there was no going back from that. No matter how many tears she shed or how many people she got to call me, I was done. Once the trust was broken, there was nothing left to fix. So, I stayed no contact with her. I blocked her on everything. Phone, email, social media. If she wanted to reach out, she'd have to go through my lawyer. That's the only way I could keep my sanity. Every now and then, someone would send me a message saying how Claire was still struggling, that she wasn't handling things well, and that maybe I should meet up with her. They didn't get it. I wasn't interested in giving her any more of my time. She made her choice and I made mine. As the days turned into weeks, I started to feel better. It was weird, like I'd finally cut off this weight that had been dragging me down. I didn't feel angry anymore, just relieved. I wasn't going to let her pull me back into that mess. I had my own life to rebuild, and I wasn't about to let her ruin that, too. So, after all the craziness, it was time to actually start moving forward. It wasn't like flipping a switch and suddenly everything was okay. But I'd made up my mind that I wasn't going back. Claire had done enough damage and I wasn't going to let her drag me down anymore. Blocking her on everything was the best decision I made. She couldn't reach me, couldn't send me guilt-tripping texts, couldn't cry to me over the phone. I finally had some space to breathe, and that's exactly what I needed. But just because I cut her off didn't mean life got easier right away. There was a ton of stuff to deal with. I mean, I still had to get through the legal stuff, figure out what to do with the house, and explain to people who kept asking what the hell happened between us. It was exhausting. One of the biggest things was figuring out what to do about the house. Technically, it was in both our names, but I didn't want to live there anymore. The place felt tainted, like every corner of it reminded me of the lies and the sneaking around. So, I decided I wasn't going to keep it. I wanted a fresh start somewhere that didn't come with all the baggage. I called a lawyer to start the divorce process officially. I had no idea what I was doing, but the lawyer walked me through everything. We'd have to split assets, figure out what was fair, all that stuff. Claire hadn't responded yet, but I knew she'd come around once the papers hit her. I was preparing myself for whatever drama that would bring. On top of all that, I had to explain the situation to people who were still in the dark. My family, a few close friends who didn't know the details yet. They were all asking questions. When I finally told my parents, they were shocked. My mom was especially upset because she thought Claire was practically perfect. She couldn't believe that the woman who had been part of our family for almost 10 years had done something like this. I had to remind her that things aren't always what they seem. Then there were the friends. Most of them were on my side, but I still got the occasional, "But maybe you should talk to her or it's not too late to fix things." I wasn't having any of that. Fix what? She cheated, lied, and disrespected me. There was no fixing that. I wasn't about to entertain the idea of going back to someone who'd been unfaithful, no matter how many tears she shed or how many apologies she made. After a couple of weeks of just laying low and sorting through the mess, something weird happened. I started to feel better, lighter even. It was like once the dust settled and I stopped worrying about what everyone else thought, I realized how much weight I'd been carrying around. The trust issues, the constant wondering where she was or who she was with, that was all gone now. And yeah, I still had moments where it hit me that my marriage was over, but those moments didn't sting as much as they did at the beginning. One of the things that helped me move on was getting back into some of the hobbies I'd let slip during my marriage. Before all this, I used to love playing basketball with some buddies from work. But over the last year or so, I'd kind of let that go. So, I hit them up and started joining them again at the local gym. It felt good to be doing something for myself again, something that wasn't tied to the stress of my relationship. I also focused on work. I know it sounds cliché, but diving into my job gave me a sense of purpose when everything else felt shaky. I wasn't going to let Claire's actions ruin every part of my life. I still had control over my career, and I poured my energy into that. And guess what? It paid off. I started getting recognition for some of the projects I'd been leading, and it felt like I was finally moving forward in a positive direction. Then, out of nowhere, I started hearing from people who hadn't been in touch for a while. Old friends who'd heard through the grapevine about the divorce reached out checking in on me. Some of them had gone through similar situations, and it was kind of comforting to talk to people who understood what I was dealing with. I'm not saying misery loves company or anything, but it did help to know I wasn't the only one who had gone through something like this. Eventually, I started thinking about what was next for me. I wasn't ready to jump into another relationship or anything. I was still healing from everything that had happened, but I wasn't going to let Claire's betrayal make me give up on the idea of finding someone new someday. I mean, yeah, it was going to take time, but I wasn't about to let one bad experience ruin my whole outlook on relationships. People kept asking if I'd ever consider dating again, and my answer was always the same. Maybe one day, but not right now. I wasn't in a rush. I'd spent almost 10 years with Claire, and I wasn't about to rush into anything else just because I didn't want to be alone. I needed time to figure out who I was without her. And that was going to take more than a few weeks or even months, and honestly, the single life wasn't that bad. I had my freedom back. I could do what I wanted when I wanted without having to check in with anyone or worry about what they were up to. It was a weird adjustment at first, but the more time went on, the more I realized how much I'd missed that freedom. Looking back, I know I made the right choice walking away from Claire. Sure, it hurt at first and it was messy and complicated, but in the end, I wasn't going to stay in a marriage that was built on lies. I deserve better than that. Everyone does. No one should stay with someone who disrespects them like that. So, yeah, things were starting to look up. I wasn't exactly where I wanted to be yet, but I was getting there day by day. I was moving on, and that felt pretty damn good. I was starting to feel like I'd finally moved on, like things were finally leveling out. But of course, just when you think you've gotten some peace, life has a way of throwing something else at you. This time it was Claire. I hadn't heard from her directly in a while, thanks to blocking her on everything. But that didn't mean she was completely gone from my life. One day, out of the blue, I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. I usually don't answer unknown numbers, but for some reason, I picked this one up. And who was on the other line? Claire. She sounded nervous, which wasn't really surprising considering everything. "Matt, I know I'm the last person you want to talk to," she started. And I was about to hang up right there, but something made me pause. Maybe it was curiosity, or maybe I just wanted to hear what she had to say. "I just need to talk to you, please," she said. I could hear her almost pleading. "I know I messed up, but there's something important we need to talk about." Now, this was the same Claire who had lied to my face for months, cheated, and tried to spin everything like it was some kind of misunderstanding. So, naturally, I wasn't exactly rushing to hear her out. I told her, "Look, there's nothing left to say. We're done. You made your choices and I made mine." There was silence on the other end for a few seconds. I thought maybe she'd given up, but then she said, "I just need to meet with you, Matt, one last time. It's not about us. It's about something else." I didn't know what she meant by something else, but I wasn't about to get dragged back into her drama. "No," I said, keeping it short. "Not meeting you, Claire. We've got nothing left to talk about." Again, there was this long pause. She wasn't giving up, though. "Please, just hear me out. It's important." I was getting frustrated at this point. I wasn't interested in whatever new excuse she had cooked up, but just as I was about to hang up, she said something that caught me off guard. "It's about the house." "The house?" Now, she had my attention. We hadn't finalized what to do with the house yet, and if she had something to say about that, I figured it was worth hearing. "Fine," I said, keeping my voice cold. "Say what you need to say." She sighed like she was relieved that I hadn't hung up. "I've been thinking about the house," she started. "And I don't think it makes sense for us to hold on to it anymore. I want to sell it." That was the last thing I expected. I thought she'd want to fight over the house or make it more complicated, but selling it, that actually made sense. Still, I wasn't about to jump into any agreements without thinking it through. "Okay," I said cautiously. "Well, we'll talk through the lawyers. No need for us to meet." I could hear her disappointment through the phone, but I didn't care. This was business now, not personal, and I wasn't going to let her pull me back into anything more than that. I ended the call feeling a mix of relief and frustration. At least this wasn't some new emotional plea from her. But still, hearing her voice brought back a lot of stuff I wasn't really ready to deal with. The house though, selling it, that might actually be the final piece to moving on for.